Now, everybody knows if you put something on social media, it's there forever. Everyone's going to see it. It's, it's not something that's going to be a secret. People are going to know it's you. I don't care what pseudonym or burner account you have. People are just going to find out. And these people just
Well,
don't
I would,
care.
so I definitely agree with you, E. And as far as the social media is concerned, I think what probably happened is that it was a private Facebook group and everything was going along fine, right? And they probably invite that one guy who is, he's part of the Border Patrol. Oh, hey, yeah, we got a group on Facebook. That guy joins and then says, whoa, what the fuck? And then he reaches out to some news organization like ProPublica and say, look at this shit that's going on in this Facebook group, And because some of those people are probably, like you said, using pseudonyms and stuff like that. So somebody had to identify these people because ProPublica talks about reaching out to these people by name. Some of them confirmed, yeah, that's me. They reached out to the government to say, what are you guys doing about this? And the government hasn't responded. The spokespeople at Border Patrol. But I think that all of you guys are absolutely right that this behavior is set from the top, right? And it's not like people got racist and bigotry in their hearts on January 20th of 2017 when Trump was inaugurated. So, this stuff was there. It was under the surface, right? And Trump basically says, if you feel this way, you don't have to hold that in. You let that out, right? And because it's a new ball game now that he's in charge. As far as investigations, that shit's not going to happen. There's something that I say to people, and it almost, I try to when I speak, I try to think carefully about the things that I say. I remember this person who was a speechwriter for George W. Bush used to say, he used to always tell the president that you have to taste your words before you speak them to make sure you don't say some foul, crazy shit, right? And when I say this, it hurts me to say it, but I think sometimes in this country, some of our freedoms, we are too free. And what I mean by that is that here with freedom of speech, we allow people to say whatever the fuck they want, almost whenever the fuck they want or wherever the fuck they're at, right? And so it allows for the Klan to have Klan rallies and try to recruit people on college campuses and, rent out Madison Square Garden and have Klan marches in the middle of Times Square in DC, Charlottesville, et cetera, right? Because we say these people have the right to say these things. Whereas you look at a country like Germany, once World War II was over and the Nazis were defeated, right? When World War II ended, Nazism didn't die. People are still Nazis and neo-Nazis and all that shit today, right? But in a country like Germany, Germany said that shit is not acceptable here. Are there still Nazis in Germany? Absolutely. But if you go and get a Hitler mustache cut on your face, you can be arrested for that. The government doesn't allow people to name their children Adolf, right? If you wear Nazi paraphernalia or have these rallies and shit like that, you can be fucking arrested because that country has decided that type of behavior and attitude is not acceptable in their society, right? So if you want to be a Nazi, you can fucking feel that way at home, but you're not going to march in our streets and terrorize our people and all this kind of bullshit. And we don't do that here. We say however you feel, you say it loud and proud, and we'll even send the police to make sure that you can act in that manner to spread your hate and racism and bigotry. And sometimes I think that that's a mistake that our founders made in putting that in the Constitution that allows people to just be as hateful as they want whenever they want and be totally protected by the government for it.
I think largely, yeah, man, I agree 100%. And just looking deeper, just historically, it's white privilege, it's white supremacist privilege. And like we've talked, on the different instances of these people being undercover racists that are in, power. I mean, when you think of the construct of race as it is, when you're talking about somebody being racist, you're talking about someone being in position of power to oppress another culture. And to your point, historically in this country, anytime that blacks mobilize and march and get together, not anytime, but most times, it's exactly the opposite. It's the anti. And, you see Charlottesville and how that happened. And the sole casualty was a white woman. And it's just disgusting, man. And we've been saying this ad nauseum, and Trump emboldens this behavior. But I think the other thing that bothers me too is that, and I haven't done anything to contribute to this and what I'm about to say, but I think as a people, as a minority culture, because I don't like to say the race thing because I don't subscribe to that, because to subscribe to the idea that there are different races is subscribing to the racist ideology. So we're all one human race, but the different ethnic cultures and ethnicities, we're fighting one battle on one hand where we're dealing with racism against blacks and browns and the economic stuff and all of that. But where are the human groups, the human rights people? I think this is everybody's fight to be upset at this border issue, because like Steve said, these people are human beings, man. And let this have been Michael Vick's dog's situation or anything like that related to animals. And I know Steve is an animal lover as well as I am, but the same energy isn't being given here. This that's happening is a travesty. And I think the lack of empathy, the lack of care that we have for human life really should be on display of how much of a scumbag American society we are. I mean, I'm telling you, man, that the hatred and the vitriol that was put out there for somebody like a Mike Vick, I get it. I get it. People love their dogs. I love dogs for sure. But where is that same energy for human life, human beings? This infant baby, these kids that are drinking out of toilets, like that's POW level. That's POW, prisoner of war level type torture. That, I mean, whether they're doing it off necessity, they're not being, who knows if they're being yelled at to do that, but to have to drink out of a toilet, that's POW level type torture. Am I going too far with that, VP?
I would say I wouldn't compare it.
I was just saying, just the whole not the sleeping thing. Is it not sleeping toward not being able to sleep? And you're saying they have to stand, they can't lay down. So them not really being able to sleep, that's torture.
Yeah. And it's summer. It's about to be summer. Well, it's summer. It's June. It's gonna be hot as fuck in there. I mean, I'm gonna assume that they got air. I'm gonna hope they have air. But when you got 300 people in a space that's set for, there's reasons why there's fucking fire code in bars. You know what I'm saying? The bar says you can have 45 people in there. You get to 60, they're coming to shut that bitch down. So now imagine 300 people in a fucking room that's supposed to hold 125. Children at that. You know what I mean? That were ripped from their fucking parents' arms.
And Steve, that's a great point that you bring up about like the fire code and bars, etc., right? Because one thing that we found out, not from this report here, but from previous reports I've seen on this situation, is that what the Trump administration did is, in most of these places where they have these detention centers for migrants, they're purposely being held on federal land. And the reason they're doing that is to avoid some of the state laws. So, for example, if they had some of these detention centers where they have the children on, like, state land, like outside of federal land, basically, then even though these would be federal employees or federal contractors or whatever, they would be required to meet the standards that the state sets for watching kids, basically. So they'd have to go through background checks for being a rapist or a sex offender, etc. But by being on federal land, they can avoid those type of things. And there have already been several cases of some of these women and girls being raped in these detention centers. And people say, well, how come they didn't catch so and so? Because this dude has been, charged with sexual assault in the past. And it's because on the federal property, they don't have to go through those background checks. I mean, they're probably required, but it's probably easier to waive. You see what I'm saying? Whereas with the state, they would have to do some of these background checks and fire codes and child safety and endangerment laws and things like that. But on the federal grounds, they don't have to worry about that kind of shit. They can just go around all of that stuff.
When's the last time? I think was it might have been E that brought it up. But we've said it in general is think about it from the administration point of view. When's the last time that you turned the fucking news on and prior to recent events and you see them talking about cities bracing for neo-Nazi gatherings and KKK rallies like out in the fucking open? I can't think of I can't think of a time where I've ever seen that.
No, it's been like movies and shit about shit that happened in the 70s.
Right. It's unheard of. Like you had to see that shit on fucking, the X movie, the Malcolm X movie. And when you're watching it, you're like, damn, are they exaggerating? We weren't around to hear about it, and you got to help the elders, gave us the truth, behind it.
Right.
But now we're seeing it's like it's rewinding itself, and I tell you, it's only going to be in the right amount of time before somebody has enough of it, and they're going to set it off. And we have and the problem is minorities have the resources that they didn't have back in those times, and it could get ugly and get nasty, and that's a fear that I have.
Yeah.
I'm gonna read two definitions to my question. Torture. Definition of torture. The infliction of intense pain, rather, from burning, crushing, wounding, to punish, coerce, force, or afford sadistic pleasure, something that causes agony or pain, distortion or over refinement of a meaning or an argument, straining, to cause intense suffering, to punish by coerce, inflicting excruciating pain. So it's all physical, right? So that's all administering physical type stuff. Then we look at hazing, practice of unpleasant tricks, basically humiliation, forcing someone to do something that is inhumane. You have many definitions and many interpretations. And while we don't know, because we're not there, and the reports that we're getting seem to be so, I mean, because at this point, the fact that we haven't seen CNN or MSNBC or Fox News with a camera, have we seen them inside these places with a camera to observe?
No,
this?
and that's on purpose. Right. When they allow the media to go, it's no cameras at all.
And so I say that to say, to my question of torture, and then thinking about hazing, we the stuff that we're getting is leaked information, right? And we really don't even have access to what is really happening. You hear about the rape, you hear about the deaths. This by far, man, this is a sad day for the red, white, and blue. That we are acting this way towards people, that we are treating them this way, that we are allowing this to happen within our borders. And then furthermore, our agents are potentially subscribing to this. And like Steve was alluding to, if they subscribe to this, you got to think about it like this, man. And I'm a cap it like this. I work as a social worker, and I have a kid on my caseload, a young girl who sustained physical abuse from her dad, who's about 6'2", 250 easily. And I'm talking about to the point where facial lacerations are still there. The amount of the level of sadistic kind of sick person you have to be to exact that on your own flesh and blood is scary. Then put the other shoe on and say the level of a person being a sick, insane person to not only sign up, not only be in a professional role at one of the highest levels, like VP stated, and then watch these conditions of these people, and then continue on to make fun, to not even care. The level of being a sick person is pretty high. And like Steve said, this bothers me because these are the people that come back to Arizona, that live in Tucson, that live in wherever, and they come visit their family in Orlando. They might be at your neighbor's cookout. They might be wherever. Okay, and these are these people that do this, and they sleep at night. This is disgusting, man. This is nothing short of the lynch mob mentality, where people were able to watch families burn and be lynched and not care. This is nothing short of genocidal ideology, because you're literally watching hundreds of people suffer and you don't have a problem with it. Not only that, you're emboldened by this scumbag in office to make jokes about it. We got a problem, man. We got a real problem.
Put that very crystal clear. And you really hit it on the head when you talked about all groups should unite on this, and the fact that we care about animals, and I do too. I'm not for any type of animal cruelty at all, but the fact that if that was 35 dogs pent up in that place, it'd be, you would see actors come out against it and all types of craziness if we were talking about canines. But we're talking about what many people think is Mexican people, and that's not even the case. But, people are just ignorant, and they're just thinking about people that aren't them. And they don't think that it's impacting them, and they just don't care. Or they're getting a fucking kick out of it, which is gross.
Yeah, it's disgusting. It's disgusting to stand behind that. I'm done with it. You guys got anything more you want to say about that?
Nah, you good, man.
No.
All right. So it sucks to go out on such a shitty note, but I think that leaves the impression of how serious it is, and hopefully people understand, do the research, see it, and whatever impact it has. Sometimes you hope this type of stuff hits home for some people, and maybe you will see changes and see people's attitudes change, and people stop being so self-centered and all for themselves. So yep. So VP, if you will, I don't think we have anything else on the docket for this evening. If you can take us out.
Fuck the heat.
So folks, like we always say, life is about choices. We're glad you made the choice to join us. We hope that you'll subscribe, like, follow, comment, share on any of our social media. You can listen to our podcast pretty much anywhere that you can get podcasts. We're there. Just search Castworthy. And the last choice I'll ask you to make is to just, don't sit by and be a bystander and watch things happen. Get involved. Call your congressman. Run for office. Do something to get yourself out there and make your voice heard. But like we always say, we appreciate you riding with us, and we'll see you next time.